Alex Jones lost in court this week, but the conspiracy culture he symbolizes is winning. Right now, the effort to hold Jones accountable for his lies about the Sandy Hook massacre is really just getting started, though. He has other trials that he faces for damages. This is going to go on for months, probably go on for years. But the jury's decision on Friday that Jones should face punitive damages to the tune of $45 million. It was a bold statement. It was a reckoning that was 10 years in the making. And my next guests were in the courtroom for part of the trial to witness it firsthand. They've spent 5 of their years of their lives dedicated to covering Jones, skewering Jones and his InfoWars website on a podcast called Knowledge Fight. Dan Friesen and Jordan Holmes launched the podcast in 2017, and on it they use comedy to cut through crazy lies. They've produced more than 700 episodes. It turned it into a full-time career, and they flew to Texas to see the trial in person. Dan and Jordan are back home in Chicago now, and they're joining me live. Welcome to you both. Dan, what was the most impactful moment for you in that courtroom in Texas?
Definitely, I think anybody who was there in person would have a really impossible time answering anything other than the moment when Scarlett Lewis, who lost her son in the Sandy Hook massacre, was able to give her testimony in court while Alex was sitting in court. Her being able to face him and tell her story and speak her from her heart was, I think, something that will stay with pretty much everyone there for the rest of their lives.
Mm-hmm. Jordan, you all specialize in mocking Alex Jones, but was there anything funny or mockable out of this?
I think people would like to focus on Alex being kind of a bombastic character that we can mock and make fun of, but this isn't about him. I think everybody wants to make it about him and money and politics, and what it's about is Scarlett Lewis and Neil Heslin and Jesse Lewis.
It was pretty funny how much unnecessary security he had, though. That was pretty funny.
There was an Ocean's 11 size number of security detail around him, yes.
Interesting. I didn't see that. I didn't know that. So that's why it's important to be there in person. Look, you all have been doing this for 5 years. I bet it's changed a lot for you. You know, having to think about Alex Jones every day. How has it changed as these legal cases have mounted and, frankly, it's come home to roost for him?
How has it changed looking at him? Watching him?
Yeah, I mean, you're studying a person who seemed untouchable for a long time, but now is in serious legal jeopardy and financial jeopardy.
Yeah, I mean, I think that it's definitely an interesting experience because you have a bit more attention being put on this subject that otherwise, tends to just end up trending on Twitter every now and again, or not a ton of directed attention at him. Whereas with this trial, a lot has come on it. But personally, I enjoy something a little bit more substantial, and during this whole stretch of time, his content itself has been essentially hollow, and so watching him from my perspective has gotten a lot less interesting.
Is it fair to say that what InfoWars represents, this conspiracy view of the world full of nonsense, that it's spread everywhere, that it's spread outward, so there's not one InfoWars anymore, there's 100 versions of it across the web? Is that fair?
I think I would argue that the conspiracy culture is something that is created through the cracks of our regular society. It's not built from conspiracy outwards to racism and violence and all of that stuff. It's the desire for racism and the like that leads to conspiracy, that kind of situation.
That's a really interesting way to
So
put
yes,
it.
It's gotten a lot bigger.
So it's gotten bigger. And Dan, with that in mind, how do you all approach Knowledge Fight? How have you, and this is now, tell me if I'm wrong, this is a full-time job now. You all have made a career out of scrutinizing and skewering Alex Jones.
Yeah, I mean, we approach it with the understanding that it's a serious topic, but also that in order to make it interesting for anybody to listen to, you have to make something entertaining. And so, I mean, one of the advantages of being in a podcast format is you can really take your time, whereas a lot of other media formats you can't. And so the approach to taking Alex as he is involves something that other media formats probably don't have the time to do, which is explain the mechanisms of like what he's doing and why these conspiracy narratives exist, what purpose they serve, and the mechanics of them.
Well, tell
Right.
us the
I would
number
add
one
to
trick.
that-
Tell us the number one trick that he employs.
Making things up.
Well,
That's the simple one, for sure.
It's a good start, yeah.
give us one more then, Jordan.
I would say his number one trick is the ad pivot. He goes from screaming about how the world is going to end to then selling you food that'll help you survive the end of the world. So that's a pretty neat trick, I would suppose. Yeah.
Do y'all ever get bored of listening to him?
Yes.
He does all the listening and I do all the talking, so
Yeah, I would say that it's an incredibly boring experience, which is part of the reason that I do this is because I can stomach that boredom, whereas other people probably it would be a miserable experience for them to do that, so they could be in a place where they could better understand what Alex is doing and what he brings to the table. But yeah,
I
it's
think I only
terribly
consume
boring.
it through clips. The big question, I suppose, for both of you are these trials going to tamp down conspiracy culture? Do you all believe what the defense attorneys say, what the prosecutors say, the attorneys for the families, which is he needs to be held accountable so that others don't go out and lie in the future? Is that going to work, or is it futile?
I think that it can have some effect, but I think that you hopefully will end up in a situation where people are not as capricious in the future, but the effect may ultimately end up being that conspiracy producers and people who engage in the sorts of conduct that Alex does end up becoming a little bit savvier and end up learning where the lines are better of what they can do and what they can get away with. So I don't know if it's a severe blow, but hopefully it'll limit a lot of the harm.
Right.
when he's taken down, hopefully, it will create something of a vacuum. So I'm sure some people will kind of fill that vacuum, but they won't be as powerful, they won't be as big, and they won't have the same size of audience. So yeah, I think it's going to help.
Jordan and Dan, thank you both for coming on the program.
Thank you.
Up next, we're going to look at the